Hey everyone, Namaste, and thank you all for taking the time to join me in this conversation with my good friend Kausthub Desikachar. So while you all come in, I'm just going to take a few minutes to introduce Kausthub. Kausthub, as most of you know, is a renowned yoga teacher, yoga therapist, and author, continuing the classical yoga tradition of his grandfather, T. Krishnamacharya, and his father, T. K.V. Desikachar. Kaustubh began studying yoga when he was only 9 years old under his father and began teaching by the time he was 13. He has a dual master's degree from the renowned Birla Institute of Technology and Sciences and a doctorate from the University of Madras. Kaustubh continues to conduct teacher training and therapist training programs around the globe, traveling 8 months of the year to Europe, China, and other countries. He has authored several books too, and to name a few, Hatha Yoga Pradipika, To Serve with Love, a tribute to TKV Desikachar, The Yoga of the Yogi, The Legacy of T. Krishnamacharya. His objectives include the sharing of authentic yoga teachings to the modern era and building bridges between different healing modalities to promote physical, emotional, social, and spiritual health. Okay, so it would be really nice to get all of you to start commenting or say hi, just to let us know that you are here. So we're going to begin with a chant. Yeah, also to open the session with a chant. Asking all of you to welcome the chant.
Thank you, Shailaja, and thank you for organizing this. Let us begin with a chant. Yastyakva rupamadyam prabhavati jagataha anikadha anugrahaya prakshina klesharashihi vishama vishadharaha anekavaktrastu bhogi sarvajnana prasutihi bhujagaparikarah pritaye yasya nityam devo ahishah savo vyat sita bimalatanuh yogado yogayuktaha yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena Lopakarotam pravaram muninam patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi abahu purushakaram shankhachakrasidharinam sahasra shirasam shvetam pranamami patanjalim Srimate Anantaya Nagarajaya Namo Namaha Om Manibhrajat Phana Sahasra Vidhrita Vishwam Bhara Mandalaya Anantaya Nagarajaya Namaha. Namaste, friends. These are all chants to Mr. Patanjali, considered to be the most important teacher of yoga, who has presented the Yoga Darshana through the Yoga Sutras. Namaste and welcome.
That was very beautiful, Kaustubh. Really beautiful.
Thank you, ma'am.
So I'm just seeing a lot of the people who have started commenting I saw some of my students there, Chandran, Viji, Om, and some good friends there as well, Tiragamini. There's my aunt there, Chandrika. Right, so welcome all of you to the conversation, and I really hope you enjoy it. I see Tanuja, Shanti, right? A lot of familiar names. Okay, you have greetings from China as well. So those must be your students, Kausthub. Yeah. And then there's my sister-in-law from Singapore, Minnie. Hi, Minnie, Minnie and Amaya. Nice to see you all here. So let's get going. So the first question today is the very fascinating title to the talk, right? So I have to say that it was Kaustubh who gave me the title. I was going with something quite bland like energy and chakras, and he was like, no, it's going to be sun, moon, and chakras. Yeah. So I would like Kaustubh to start with the relevance of sun, moon, and its connection to. I would say Hatha Yoga, but Kaustubh will scold me if I say that. So it's Hatha Yoga.
Hatha Yoga.
Hatha Yoga.
Hatha Yoga. So, so thank you for the question. This is a very pertinent question to yoga practitioners because what yogic language used in many of the classical texts is essentially a metaphoric. So when they talk about the sun and the moon, they are talking about the polarities or the dualities with which we are affected by life. I don't even want to say duality. I would like to say polarity. Things like expansion, things like contraction, things like sukha, dukkha, gain or loss. All these, what is called so-called polar opposites. And this language is very metaphoric because in Ayurveda also, they are talking about the polarities, the 10 sets of opposites or polarities that is influencing us, that is affecting us all. So metaphorically, they gave this term, the sun and the moon, for this kind of polarity because whatever is the polarity, it's essentially energy. On the one hand, you have expansive energy. On the other hand, you have contracting energy, what we can call something that is light and something that is dark. Light is expansive, dark is contracting, it's more dense. And so they gave this metaphoric terms of sun and moon because sun is supposed to be the day where we are feeling very light and expansive, and night usually in the traditional time before the discovery of electricity and internet, people actually slept at night time rather than be awake. So it was a period of darkness, heaviness, dullness, and that is why they gave this term called sun and the moon. And basically they said that we are affected by these dualities most of the time, and what we need to do as yoga practitioners eventually is to transcend these dualities, not allow one of them to influence too much, whether it is the expansion or the heaviness, whatever you call, one of them should not influence us too much, because if we move too much to one side, then we are no more balanced or in the harmony region. So that is why they talked about the concept of sun and moon. In the Hatha Yoga, they are saying we are bringing the two energies together, metaphorically saying that there should be a situation where we don't see them as obstacles, we transcend them. For us, it's equal. We look at neither one of them as superior, we just transcend them. That's what is the meaning of the sun and the moon coming together. It means like in an equation, they become equal. It doesn't mean that they become equal in the concept of quality or quantity or things like that, but it just means that we are equally unaffected by one or the other. We are equally unaffected by one or the other. Then we are transcending the dualities or polarities, and that is what they talk about, because energy will always have polarity. The energy will always expand, it will always contract. There is no case where energy is always high or always low. There's no case in this world. Energy is always a wave. So if we transcend that, we remain in the middle. That means we are equally affected or unaffected by both. And I would prefer to choose the word unaffected, because that symbolizes that we transcend these polarities rather than be pulled down or get excited by one or the other, because one will not exist without the other.
Okay, well said. So, we talk a lot about, I think the conversation's gone a lot from yoga being exercise, physical exercise, right? And then we've talked about yoga as, pranayama, the breath coming in. So now this conversation is really about yoga in terms of energy, right? So like asanas, pranayama, everything is ultimately about energy, right? Bandhas, kriyas. So can you just talk a little bit about yoga as in that energy context?
Now, first and foremost, let's think about the time yoga originated. So when you look at this historically, yoga originated about 2,500 or 3,000 years ago. And when you think about the knowledge base that existed at this time, which influenced how these tools or the philosophies were designed or constructed, modern medicine, modern science did not exist in this time. So yoga was definitely not based on the modern anatomy and physiology of the body that we understand today. So trying to understand yoga through that science is flawed and must not be pursued, because that is like following the blind. Because yoga is not a physical science, yoga is a spiritual science. So when you look at what knowledge base existed at that time, they had the yogic way of understanding the human body. And when I say the body, I don't mean only the physical dimension. I mean the body in different layers, the subtle layer, the gross layer, etc. And what the yogis were very clear about is, if we want to bring an influence in all of these dimensions, we need to have a tool that can move in all of these dimensions. It's like, let's say, for example, if you want a person to influence every country in this world, that person needs to hold a passport that allows him or her to visit every country without any restriction. So far, there is not that passport yet, except maybe a diplomatic passport, but even that, some countries will not allow diplomats from some countries. So in some way, we need a tool that reaches every layer of the human system. And the yogis were very smart. They realized that that phenomena that reaches every layer of our human system, whether it's body or our emotions or our psychological structures, etc., is essentially prana or energy. And this is the same thing that has been taken by other Eastern traditions like Tai Chi, for example, or Zen meditation, for example. They're all working with energy or prana. They call it different names. In China, they call it Qi, whereas here we call it prana. So every tool of yoga was meant to influence prana. If it does not influence prana, it's not a tool of yoga. So the yogis constructed all these tools, whether it's asana practice, it was meant to influence energies. Whether it was pranayama practice, it was meant to influence the energies, because they understood the body in a different capacity. And especially they gave this kind of terminology that the body had different energy centers. So if you do this asana, it influences this kind of energy centers. If you do that set of asanas, it influences that kind of energy centers. So they classified asanas based on which energy centers it affected, not based on which muscles or bones that are affecting when we are doing the asanas. That is a very, how do you say, trivial approach, and it is not something that makes any sense. We must not use modern science to understand yoga, because modern science only is based on materialism only, what is measurable. Modern science does not talk about energy or prana, which is intangible. No doctor will ever tell you that your energy is bad, your energy is disturbed. They will lose their license. They will talk about blood pressure, they will talk about fever, they will talk about sugar level, which are measurable. But energy is not something that they can measure with an instrument. So, trying to understand yoga through modern science is like trying to understand a foreign language through another language that has no connection. Like, for example, trying to understand German through Chinese. It just will not work. At least Italian and French, they may have a common Latin background, but trying to understand Chinese through German or German through Chinese is not going to work. The same way, trying to understand yoga through modern science will not work. And that's why every yoga teacher must study and understand yoga from its classical roots of the nadis, of the chakras, and all these kind of things, because that is the language of yoga. And if we are just trying to copy modern medicine in some way, we are trying to seek validation from the West, which we don't need. Actually, the Western science need not validate yoga. The opposite has to happen. Yoga people have to validate Western science, because Western science is very, very limited.
Okay, noted. So I just see a lot of people from, there's our good friend Reiko from, I think, Japan. And then there's also Adrian Wong, I think that must be your student or your friend. And there's also many people from Coimbatore. I see my good friend Sangeeta, my students, Vijay Lakshmi, there's Bhavarji there. So guys, welcome. And I truly hope you are enjoying the session. And please feel free to ask any questions in the comment section if you have any during our conversation. I also see Rimka and my cousin Prakash there. So, okay, I see Minnie has already sent in a question, but I'm going to wait to get there. Okay, so I'm going to ask the question of my own, which I heard from one of your talks, which was really beautiful, that yoga brings out the gifts in each individual. So can you explain how it ties up with energy and ultimately results in unlocking our inherent potential?
Again, like I said, the reason why yoga has to validate modern science and not the other way, you have asked me you've given me the perfect opportunity. For example, you are using a computer and I am using a computer to log into this talk, and many of our friends maybe are using a computer or a mobile phone. Now, what is it that brings this gift of the computer to function? Is energy. We have to connect it to an electrical source. Now, that's in inanimate objects. But let's go to animate objects. When you look at fruits or vegetables that are growing in the garden, they need energy to grow, to bring out their seed potential into fruition. So the seed becomes a plant becomes a tree gives the mangoes. So when the mangoes come, it is coming to fruition. The same way, we are all having seed potential, what we call svabhava, which is predispositions or seed potentials that we have inherently, which need to manifest into a reality. Which need to manifest into reality. For that to happen, there needs to be energy. A seed will not grow unless there is energy of one kind or the other. So ideally, by practicing yoga in an appropriate manner, whether it's through the asana practice or pranayama practice or mantra practice or dhyanam, etc., we are allowing for prana to move freely in our system, which is like irrigating our field so that the seeds come up. When you look at a field, two things are needed for the manifestation of seed potential. One is sunlight and the other is water. Now, in yogic language, sunlight is always a metaphor for prana, and one of the metaphors for prana is also water. That's why the nadis are all named after rivers like Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati. They are named after river because water has the same quality of prana, or the reverse, prana has the same quality of water, which is, it is fluid, it moves and it is giving life. Without water, there is no life. The same way, without prana, there is no life. So the seed potential, in order to manifest to its potential, it needs the nourishment of prana, otherwise it's not going to grow. And just think about it like this. If you have a piece of land and you have some seed planted in one part of your farm, but you don't send water there, you send somewhere else, that will not grow. That is not getting the water, it will not grow. The same way, when we are practicing yoga, whether it's asana, for example, we are doing some asanas, we are directing prana to certain sections of the body so that the seed potential in that may arise, that may be nourished. So this is why yogis constructed the different asanas to direct energy into different parts of the body so that those seed potentials can manifest. They were not doing it for making strong muscles or having a sexy body or things like that, which is actually a perversion of yoga thanks to the Western influences. It's the perversion of yoga because yoga is a spiritual practice. It's not a physical gymnastic practice. And it's unfortunate that it has come to that. But thankfully now, many Western people are also turning to traditional yoga. And I think this gives hope. This really gives hope.
Well said, Kausthub, and many points noted there. Okay, so
don't just implement.
Yeah, but I think the attraction, like I said, posting your pictures on Instagram and doing all these complicated postures, like I think that is really the calling card for a lot of people. But I think once that happens, right, then somewhere along the way you realize there's a lot more to that than just the physicality of the practice. Anyway, there's just too many questions, so I don't want to waste time. One of the most fascinating concepts to people, me included, exploring the mystical aspects of existence is chakras. So what are chakras and how do they integrate into the yoga practice? So just like, like to people who really don't know, right, very much about it. Everybody hears the word, right, chakras, but, like what are they and, how do you connect to them, etc. The different chakras. And there are also so many different numbers, right? Some people 7, some people 8, some people numerous, right? So, yeah, clearing all those conceptions, misconceptions.
I wonder how long of an answer is needed here. Since you say there's a lot.
We have other questions also, so
I will try to keep it brief. Now, the body is understood as having different energy centers which are connected to certain functions in the body, not just physical functions, but also emotional functions, psychological functions as well. So therefore, the yogis said that in order for certain functions to happen, there needs to be a focused energy. And that is why they call this as chakra. Chakra is an energetic center. Now, different people talk about different number of chakras. Some of them, they talk about 5 chakras. Some of them talk about 3 chakras. Some of them talk about 10 chakras, etc. It doesn't really matter, because anywhere where there is energy is a chakra, a focused energy. The conventionally accepted model among all this is 7 chakras that are along the spine. All the chakras are usually along the spine, and they correspond to different functions in the body, as well as different emotional functions as well. For example, when you look at Muladhara Chakra, it's not only connected with the function of elimination, like our toilet movement or bowel movement, but it's also connected with elimination of emotions. For example, certain letting go of certain toxic emotions. But it's also connected with the foundation that we have. For example, the bones. It is connected to the bones and any solid part of the body, like the teeth or the nails and things like that. And it's basically also connected to the emotional stability or the foundation, which is basically our faith, how much faith we have. And that's why when the emotional, it's the negative emotion connected to the Muladhara Chakra, therefore is the opposite of faith, which is fear or anxiety. And that is why when you look at the connections, when you are anxious, you are biting your nails, your teeth is grinding, your bones are shaking. And there is this common English expression, you are so scared, you are shitting in your pants. So it's elimination as well. Sorry for the French, but it's all connected. The same way, every chakra has connection to organs in the body, emotions in the body, certain functions in the body. Certain traumas sit in certain chakras. For example, the Muladhara Chakra is usually where the birth trauma is sitting. So if you had some kind of birth trauma, whether you had a cesarean, for example, or you had complications during the birthing process, this usually would sit there. I mean, of course, there is other traumas we have in life, and so it's possible that one is more dominant than the other, and so some other chakra makes sure that another trauma sits in another chakra. So every chakra has this connection to the human body. The Muladhara also controls our feet, our legs. So every part of the body, in the physical domain, in the energetic domain, in the emotional, psychological domain, they are all connected to the chakra. And this is a very, very ancient model, explained also in the Upanishad. Chandogya Upanishad talks about the 7 pranas. So what are they talking about? They're talking about the different energies in the body. So that is the basis for yoga's practices. Why we choose certain asanas? Because they influence the lower chakras. Certain other asanas influence the upper chakras, etc. So every chakra also has some kind of element that is connected, like the Muladhara with the earth, the Swadhisthana with the water, etc., Manipuraka with the fire, etc. So even when we are choosing mantras or meditation or things like that, it is based on the chakra model. When you look at Sanskrit language, which is the language of yoga and where all the mantras are used, what's unique about Sanskrit language? Some of the people who know Sanskrit language will always know that Sanskrit syllables are always in groups of 5. Ka, ka, ga, ga, nga, cha, cha, ja, ja, nya, etc. Why 5? Because of the connection to the 5 elements. And that's why when you recite certain mantras, it reaches certain chakras. That's why I'm not, even though we joked about it, if you say hatha instead of hatha, you're shifting where the vibrations are going to reach in your body. So rather than reach the right place, you're going to reach the wrong place. Rather than allow for the right healing to happen, you're going to trigger some other place which has probably no problems. It's like going to the doctor for fever and he's giving you medicine for diarrhea. So the same thing can happen here. Instead of stimulating our digestion, if we are mispronouncing, we can stimulate the constipation or the diarrhea because of how we pronounce these things. So Sanskrit language is very refined. And even the mantra shastra is based on the chakras. So whether it's a mantra or pranayama or asanas, everything is connected to this model, because this is one of the most fundamental models of understanding the human body from Vedic science, and that is the basis for yoga. We should never forget that.
So this just ties in with the next question about, how do the chakras, are they necessary for good health, their, functioning? Can you just shed some light on chakras and health?
Chakras, there is no question whether chakras are necessary or not, because they are phenomena that are absolutely
functioning well.
Now, in the yogic language, in the yogic science, what they are saying is, if the energy is balanced in each of the chakras, we are healthy. Because when the chakras are balanced with their energy, then basically the organs are functioning well. The organs connected to them will function well. Our emotions connected with them will function well. Our limbs that are connected with them will function well. So we don't have to worry about it. That's why all the yoga texts, including the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, is talking about moving the prana along the Sushumna where all the chakras are, so that they all get the energy that they need in a balanced way. Neither deficient nor excess, because if the prana is excess in one chakra, it creates a certain set of problems, hyper problems. If prana is weaker in a chakra, it creates the hypo problems. Both are not needed. So for health, it's so important that we need to balance the energy in all the 7 chakras through a variety of ways. It's not easy, because the weakness in one may not be because of a weakness in that chakra only. Because like we talked about polarity, the chakras also have polarities. The Muladhara is connected to the Swadhisthana. Muladhara is connected to the Sahasrara, the Swadhisthana to the Agnya Chakra, the Manipuraka to the Vishuddhi, and the Anahata has its own individual polarity with each and every one of the chakras. So you may have a deficiency in Sahasrara, not because there is a problem in Sahasrara, because its polar connection to Muladhara. There may be something wrong with the Muladhara that is creating the weakness here. That is creating the weakness there. The problem need not be here. Like, for example, if your house has a low voltage, it doesn't mean that something is wrong with the wiring in your house. The local transformer from which you are getting the connection, that may have a problem. So therefore, you have a problem here. So that's why this has to be studied in depth. That's why I asked you in the beginning how long of an answer it is, because these are not some things that we can discuss on a conversation. These are all long-term studies. And hopefully more and more people will want to study these things.
Yeah, but like I said, there's just these are all very common words like chakras. So it's just good, to at least have some idea about what they are. And so I have this question from my friend in Coimbatore, Sangeeta. So she says, when physically there are limitations, right, and all the asanas are not possible, can we still energize the chakras?
Of course, because chakras are not energized only with asanas. Chakras can be energized with pranayama, chakras can be energized with mantra, Chakras can be energized with meditation. Chakras can be energized with just simple visualization. You put your hands on a particular chakra and you breathe with the visualization of moving the prana there. That chakra will get energized. There is no doubt about it. So that's the other problem we have in the modern era, where we think yoga is synonymous with asana. Asana is a very small part of yoga, my dear friends. You don't need to do asana to bring about a balance to the chakras, but asana is certainly one of the tools. That is the beauty of yoga. Patanjali gives us so many tools. He is not only giving us asana in the Yoga Sutra. Asana has merely 3 sutras among 195 sutras of Patanjali, which means about 1.5% or 2% importance is given to asanas, nothing more. There's 97% more of yoga that we can engage with. So please, my dear friends, don't be discouraged if you have some physical limitations. That has nothing to do with yoga or the chakras. We can still be influencing these through other means and other methods.
So just to delve a little bit more into that. So when you say other methods, what would they be, Kausthub? Like pranayama practices?
Yeah, I just listed. There is asana, there is pranayama, there is mantra, there is visualization, there is bhavana and things. And when we use that, there will be changes in the physical dimensions as well. For example, many years ago, I've taught a young man who had a stroke. And for him, the left side of the body, especially from above the waist, could not move because he was paralyzed. But the right side could move very easily. So we would engage with practices where when he inhales, he raises the right arm. And when he exhales, he lowers the right arm. But on the other side, when he inhales, he visualizes, he raises the left arm. He visualizes, he lowers the left arm, because he cannot move his left arm. Now that's visualization, and you won't believe that after some weeks he could start moving his fingers, and after some months he could start moving his arms. That's the power of the human body, because human body is holistic. Each layer is connected with the other. If one can influence the other, the reverse is also possible. When you are sleeping and dreaming, and let's say you are chased by a dog in your dream, and you're running and running and running in the dream, you start sweating, you start panicking, you start breathing, your body becomes tense and tired, and you wake up from the dream. You basically have been in your bed, but in your dream, you've been running. So mind is controlling your breath, your body, and everything. Now, if it can happen in the dream, it can also happen in the conscious state. That's why when you look at certain words used, for example, for the type of mind that is dominant in dream state, as well as in meditation state, it's the same word, pratyaya, a very deep subconscious mind that can influence the body. So if you can do that through dream, you can do that in waking state. That's why you have meditation as one of the tools. And this is very important to remember. If it can work in one way or the other in a positive way, it can also work in one way or the other in the negative way. So if you think negatively, your body will also become negative. Or the opposite. If you abuse your body, physical body, it will abuse your mind. You are abusing your mind and emotional structure as well. That's why we must never push our body to achieve physical form, because then in some way you are violating the boundaries and the limitations of your body, and it will have an impact on your energy, on your mind, on your emotions, etc. There's no doubt about this, because body is integrated. There is no separation. So don't be disappointed if there are some physical limitations, because that limitation is only one limitation, because there is nobody who is perfect in all dimensions. So everybody can do yoga.
Okay, so here's another question from a completely opposite angle from Gabriella from Italy. So she says that in her experience, right, people first approach yoga practice, from the physical aspect, and then later on they, find, they get exposed to the use of mantras, etc. So her question is, isn't it good to give them the opportunity to come to a deeper experience, even if in the beginning they are only body oriented?
If they come, if that opens the door for deeper experience, that is great. But part of the problem with focusing yoga only as a physical practice and achievement of a certain posture or certain positions, etc., is that it will activate, it has the capacity, I don't want to say it will, it has the capacity to activate the narcissistic dark seeds in us, and that when it becomes dominant, there is no turning back. When you activate the dark seeds, that will replace the light seeds that you have. And it's very difficult to turn back. And that is part of the problem I am seeing in a lot of yogis all over the world, where they are pushing themselves in so many ways to achieve a certain physical posture, a physical form, because the yoga teachers are guiding them in an inappropriate manner, rather misguiding them. And so we can't blame the students for this, we have to blame the teachers. And I think that is where we need to be very careful, because the shift from the light to the dark is very quick and you may not even realize that it is happening. It's like in the movie Star Wars, when Skywalker becomes Darth Vader, it's a very quick shift. It takes over, and it's very hard to come back. Because we do have, all of us, me included, everybody, we all have positive seeds and negative seeds. What do we want to activate is our choice. And that is why we need to be very careful with yoga. Please remember, even Patanjali discusses this, that there is dark yogis, there is bright yogis, and there is karma yogis. And there are some yogis who are partially bright, partially dark in energy. Karma, Shukla, Krishnam, Yoginaha, Trividham, Itaresham. So we need to really, really focus on this.
So what are we activating through our yoga practice? So I have a question here from Arvind Swami. I think he's from Rajasthan. So he says, how can we identify where the chakra energies are blocked? And, I guess how to take it further. You've already gone to the different ways that you can do it. But is there any way is illness like an indication that a chakra is blocked? A disease?
Illness is one of the indications. See, again, that's why I said it will be good if you can one day study all this in detail. There are signs where the chakras are weaker. There are signs where when the chakras are too hyper. And we need to learn to observe these things. And then we will understand how to identify whether something is weak or something is strong. A simple example, for example, in a physical level, if there is, let's say, obesity, you can understand that maybe the Muladhara is too heavy. If there is the opposite, underweight, you know that the Muladhara is a bit weak. If somebody is very stubborn with their thinking, they don't change, even if they know that what they are thinking is not right. That is, the Muladhara is too heavy. It's heavy, it's dark. They're not changing. Or if somebody is not at all fixed on one thing, they keep changing. They don't make any commitment. They keep changing their commitment. It's typical in India. When you ask somebody to come for an appointment at 5 o'clock, they never show up at 5 o'clock. When you ask somebody to deliver something, they ask them how many days it will take. They say, oh, sir, it will take 3 days. It is never 3 days. You take the advertisement for Maggi noodles, 2 minutes. It's never cooked in 2 minutes. That's lack of commitment, because what you say is not what you're doing. that's a sign that the Muladhara is weak. So like that, there are lots of signs and symptoms that show us which chakras are imbalanced, and that is a science that you have to study.
So he also asks, is there any good book that you can recommend?
These are all things that are transmitted orally usually, so there is not a book that has been written yet in a proper manner about this. There are lots of books about chakras, but none of them are actually talking about these kind of things, because this is a very complicated thing and many of the teachings cannot be put into a book. Like polarities, for example, it's very difficult to say only these are the polarities. There needs to be learning through discussion, learning through observation.
Okay, so in these COVID times that we live in, I heard you talk about how the heart chakra was important for immunity. So can you just explain a bit about that?
It's very simple, because as I said, when we talk about different chakras connected to different systems, the heart chakra, one of the systems that it is connected to is the immune system. Now, heart chakra is also connected to love. Connection. Love, I don't only mean romantic love for your family member, like your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, your children, your dog, etc. And love is the most powerful force to vitalize the immune system. And when you look at it, for example, I don't know if that person is listening to this conversation right now, but one of my students, her mother was dying, and the doctors told them that the mother has 2 weeks to live and not more. So my student and her sister decided, because they are the only two surviving children, that, well, it's only 2 weeks our mother has, so let's go be with her in the last 2 weeks. So they go visit that mother, and they start caring for the mother. The mother feels loved. 2 weeks become 1 month. 1 month becomes 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. It lasted a year. They had to take turns to take care of the mother, because the mother felt loved. The immune system became stronger. She started living longer. And this is very, very powerful. And when we talk about this love, it's a connection. It's not love based on expectation of lust or things like that. It's a feeling of connection. And for that to happen, we need the connection to ourselves first. That's why if we are well connected to ourselves and have self-love, which means self-compassion, self-nourishment, etc., we will be very healthy, because that is also connected to the immunity, because the heart is open. Many people, we are disconnected from ourselves. That's why we don't take the signs that the body is giving us. We don't listen to the messages that our heart is giving us. And we don't hear all this because we are searching for a romantic love in a particular form. If this happens, it's love. If it doesn't happen, it's not love. We tell some other people the same we do to our body. If you are skinny, that means you are lovable. If you are not skinny, you are not lovable. If your hair is, if you have a bad hair day, you are not lovable because it's disgusting. People put these kind of things, and they are putting egoistic boundaries, and ego is something that takes away love. And that's why many people are suffering from autoimmune disorders in this time, because we are disconnected from ourselves. We are not showing the love towards ourselves, and that is why we become sick. The heart chakra is also connected to the breathing. Breathing is very essential for nourishing our immune system as well. That's why all these organs, they are somehow connected to kapha. That's why when you have breathing problems, it will show in a disturbance in the kapha pulse. When you have immune problems, it will show a disturbance in the kapha pulse, etc. And that is the strong connection to the Anahata chakra. And when we talk about connection, I told you earlier, Anahata Chakra has its own polar connection with every chakra. If we can, through the Anahata Chakra as the base, as a center, offer a loving connection to the other chakras and follow it. That's why I said it's not just enough to note it, to follow it, because that is love. Love is known through action, not words. When we follow it, every other chakra will start to feel nourished, and there will be a very, very good and harmonious balance in energies, and we will be healthy. This is very, very powerful.
Okay, so this is just going off topic for a second, but when you talk about the heart, I mean, both in your conversations as well as I think in your father's as well, right? I think his book was Heart of Yoga. The heart has a very important place, right, in the yogic practices and in the way we live life. So, can you just shed some light on that?
Yeah,
why is this heart?
When we talk about heart here, we are not talking about the organ that pumps blood. We are talking about Hridaya, which is the heart center, and that is the place where the divine is existing. Our body is the temple, and the heart is the sanctum where the divine is there. And certain classical texts, like the Yoga Rahasya, say that the heart is the place where the divine is, the Jivatma is, the mind is, the senses are, and the prana is. All of these are in the heart region. So, if we nourish that region, all this will get nourished because it is the place of the divine. We don't need to find the divine only in a temple or in a church or a mosque. We have the divine very close to ourselves. And so that's why we in India do Namaste, because what we are saying is we honor that divine in your heart. And when the other person says Namaste, they are saying we honor in return the divine in your heart. So it's a connection between the divine in us and the divine in the other. It is not an egoistic connection that, oh, I'm so great, I'm president of this company and you have to salute me or whatever, shake hands and all that. That's why we are doing Namaste. Not because we don't want to touch somebody because of Corona, but it's we want to honor that divine in each other, because it is in each one's heart that the divine is existing, and that is the portal to the divine connection universally.
That's so beautiful. And like when we go into meditation, right? So is there any one specific chakra that we have to be focusing on, or all chakras are important, or is like?
There's a few things we can speak about here. For us to be able to meditate, the Agnya Chakra and the Sahasrara Chakra have to be in a reasonable state of balance. It's like the prerequisite. If they are not in balance, we will not have the capacity to meditate. But that doesn't mean that we only have to meditate on these chakras. We can meditate on every chakra which is inside the body, or even objects of focus that are outside, like the sun, like the moon, like the mountain, like the river, like the ocean, or if people believe in a chosen deity, in their chosen deity. So, meditation is not limited to one chakra or the other, but in order for us to have the capacity to meditate, the Sahasrara and the Agnya Chakra have to be in balance. If they are not there, then we have a lot of trouble. We won't be able to meditate. We will just be distracted here and there. We won't be able to meditate. We will just be imagining, but that is not meditation. We will imagine or hallucinate, but that will not be meditation.
Okay, so any of the chakras are okay, and as well as all these other sunlight.
In therapeutic cases, we need to focus on some particular chakras. For example, if the Muladhara is weak, We could use meditation to make the Muladhara stronger. If Manipuraka is weak, we could use meditation to make the Manipuraka stronger. So we need meditation on the different chakras. There is no doubt about that. And especially in some kind of therapeutic situations.
So this is from Arvind Swami again. He says when we talk, to chakra people, they say it has to be activated in a sequence, right from Muladhara to Sahasrara. So what is your opinion on that?
I will answer the question first. If he answers in return, who is chakra people? I don't know who is the chakra people.
No, I mean, he just says when we talk about chakra, people generally think that it has to be, activated.
I thought you said that there is a kind of chakra people.
I mean, basically, maybe people who talk the language of all this. I mean, you could be a chakra person, right?
No, normally, in an ideal situation, if you go from Muladhara upward to balance, then there is some kind of logic, because one is the foundation for the other. The lower chakras are always the foundation for the chakras above them. In an ideal situation. However, we are living in a world where sometimes we need like short-term treatment, because maybe there is some event that is happening in our life where one chakra gets more sick than the other. For example, if you have some respiratory problems, obviously the Anahata chakra is much more important, because that controls our respiratory system. So we don't have to start with Muladhara and go all the way up. Immediately we need to work with the Anahata chakra to pacify that as a treatment. So we have both situations. In an ideal case, we need to bring harmony, and for that we need to start working when we are younger, when we are very young kids, because the younger we are, the above chakras don't have not yet fully developed. They're only developing. So if we are able to balance the Muladhara very young, when a child is very young, then it's possible that then we can balance the Swadhisthana. So that's through our developmental cycle. But once we are grown up and we are messed up, that logic need not always be followed.
Okay, so we have a question here from Chandran. He says, what can you say about certain crystals being used to energize chakra? I also had another student asking about beads. People wear like chakra beads. What is your opinion on that? Does it actually help?
Yeah, like I said, the concept of crystals is not new. It's very old, and there is some theory in the field of crystals about certain chakras being more connected to certain crystals than others. But I have not studied that theory, and that is not part of yoga theory, because yoga is not recommending crystal as an intervention. Because one of the things about yoga is that all yogic tools are non-invasive. That means we are using body's own resources in order to influence the body. And obviously a crystal is not really part of our body's resources. It is something that we are acquiring. There is nothing wrong with that, but that doesn't belong to the yoga system. However, having said that, definitely yoga is not the only system that is connected to the chakras.
Okay. So I saved this question for the last. This is from my friend Mini. So she says it could be said that science has stated nadis and chakras are some Eastern poetic spiritual terms that equate to the infinite webs of relationship between muscles, nerves, emotions, energy, and the psyche. But we are not able to prove objectively and effectively that a living element like this chakra exists. So, does it, or what is the validation for chakras?
I would put the opposite view. Lack of proof does not mean something does not exist.
Okay.
Lack of proof is not proof that something does not exist. And just because we are not able to measure something through a measurable instrument doesn't mean that it does not exist. Science has not yet developed technology to measure these intangible tools. So that's why we need to have an open mind, open heart, that maybe there are other methods. And in some ways, science has become very fanatic, because science is saying if you don't go our way, you are wrong. That is fanaticism, and we must not buy into that, because we have to keep our minds and hearts open that there is perhaps more than one way that will appeal to different people. There will be some people for whom science is the way, but there'll be some other people for whom spirituality is the way. And this is a very fascinating topic, because for many, many years, the concept of spirit has been rejected by many, many people, not only modern science, but even traditional science, traditional systems like Charvaka system is a system of materialism. It doesn't believe in spirit. It doesn't believe in all these other things which cannot be measured. But the spirit is enduring even now. That itself is proof that there is a spirit, because it's still enduring 2,000, 3,000 years of assault. And it will continue.
Okay, well said. So I hope many are happy with that answer. And I have one last question here, which also ties up with, we always, with Kausthub, mantras are a key part of his talks and his practice. So her question is, how does sound or vibration affect the chakra?
She probably joined us a bit late.
Yeah.
Sanskrit mantras are connected with different elements which are connected to the different chakras. Like, for example, Muladhara is connected with the earth element. So if you use mantras that are connected to the earth element, it will influence the Muladhara very strongly. So in Sanskrit, the mantras are so specific, and that's why we must not make mispronunciations in Sanskrit, because that's why Sanskrit is not alphabet based, it's phonetic based language. It's a Shabda Anushasanam. It's not an alphabet based system like English. In English, the same alphabet is pronounced differently in different words. In Sanskrit, it's always pronounced the same way. That's why it's a phonetic-based language. Atha Shabdanushasanam. It's a very powerful language. So that's how the sound approaches or affects the different chakras. It's a very, very fascinating field.
Okay, thank you. And we're going to close this session. We've already gone beyond 1 hour. Kausthub is going to, no, you're not done yet, Kausthub. Kausthub is going to close with a chant. So we'll just really make it an experiential practice where we experience the effect of the vibration.
Thank you. I will do a chant that is supposed to be the chant that we describes the feeling we have when we experience the divine. So it's supposed to go all the way from the heart chakra all the way to the Sahasrara Chakra. I don't know if you will feel this through the technology of Zoom, but we will try. Etat samagayan naste Chakra Chakra Ahamasmi prathamaja reta Hormandevebhyo Amritasya Bhai Yo Madadati Sa Ideva Ma Vaha Ahamanna Manna Madanta Madmi Aham Vishwam Bhuvanamabhya Bhava Sovarna Jyoti Ya Evam Veda Etyopanishat Hare Om Shanti 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 Namaste, friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaustubh, for this very wonderful and enlightening conversation. And, just so many more questions, but our time is up. And those of you who want to contact Kaustubh, he's very contactable. He does a lot of classes, online classes. Kaustubh, your details.
Yes. So, my friends, if you are interested in some of my online things, I will post as a comment on the video so you can follow it up, and please be in connection if you need any questions answered or things like that.
Yeah, so maybe your email address or something as well, so people can connect with you. Yeah. So a lot of comments about the chants. I have Arvind Swami asking what mantra it is, and I have a lot of my students who say it's such a beautiful session. Renuka, Tanuja, Viji, all of them say they really felt it. Viji says she really felt it. So thank you so much for the chanting, Kaustubh, and really for your time and sharing your expertise with all of us. Truly appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. The chant is the last part of the Taittiriya Upanishad, third chapter, called Bhriguvalli. It is a chant that is trying to explain the feeling that we may have when we come in contact with the divine.
So beautiful, really beautiful. Thank you so much, Kaustubh.
Namaste.
Namaste.